So welcome. My name is Suzanne Grossman. I direct career services at Baruch College's Marxe School of Public and International Affairs, where we have graduate programs in international affairs, public affairs, and higher education administration for those who might be interested. And we're pleased to open up this event to all CUNY students on internships with Marti Fischer. And so we're also gonna send around the recording afterward in case you miss anything or don't want to take notes today. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Marti, but I'll also ask if you want to put in the chat which school you are joining us from. What's your affiliation? It's always nice to see where people are from. So I'll turn it over to you, Marti. Thanks so much for leading this session today.
Thanks, Suzanne. I appreciate it. Thank you, Samantha, both of you for inviting me today. My name's Marti Fischer. As Suzanne said, I'm an executive coach. I've worked in that field for 20 years. Before that, I was a professional negotiator in the television and advertising business. So I've led a lot of teams. I've hired a lot of interns. I've coached a lot of people from interns to CEOs. And now I wrote this book, How to Make Your Internship Count. Wait, visual aid. Ta-da! There it is. And I wrote it because over the last 20 years of doing this, I've seen a lot of divide between people that have a lot of business connections, people that are networked into the business world and getting internships, and people that may not have that kind of path. And so I wrote this book to really level the playing field and provide a step-by-step roadmap so every single person looking for an internship can really own their experience. And that kind of autonomy really builds a lot of confidence toward not only getting an internship and doing well in the internship, but also getting and launching your career. So today we're going to spend an hour, and I appreciate you taking this hour to talk about strategies for landing an internship and launching your career. If anyone's interested in the book, there are QR codes throughout, so you can just QR code it, and it's in all the usual places. Okay, an internship is a good idea. I mean, yeah, it's a good idea. Just about 72% of employers make full-time job offers to their interns. And of that, 80% accept. Why? Because it's a great way. It's like rent to own. You can check the place out. They can check you out. You can see if you like the work. They can see if they like you and you fit well within the team. It's a really good way to get a lot of information, a lot of education, and a good way to get your feet wet in the working world and see what it is you like about it and see what it is you don't like about it. But the most important fact is this one here on the screen, that it is a very robust pathway to full-time employment. Okay, but let's just call it what it is. There are a lot of people out there who are going to be graduating this year with undergraduate degrees, 2.1 million, typo there, sorry about that, 1 million associate degrees and 860,000 graduate degrees. So it's a pretty full field. And that's why things like career services are super important, because they have access to a lot of these employers that are fielding internships, and they're an amazing resource in that regard. So today, once you've seen this crowded field, we're going to talk about how to set yourself apart from that field and leverage your internship experience so you can get the most from that internship, but also set yourself up for a job offer and success. Based on your questions, and thank you for being so willing to share your thoughts and share your questions, this is what we'll talk about today. These were sort of the 7 biggest drivers of the questions. If you have individual questions that we're not going to touch on, or you feel like they haven't been touched on enough, we're going to try to do some Q&A at the end, so you can stick them in the chat, and we'll have a peek at that. So what we'll talk about is how to choose a path. There were a number of people who signed up who haven't yet selected an internship. So we'll talk a little bit about what some of the things you can do and things you can think about and connections you can make in terms of choosing a path. We'll talk a lot about what employers value, not only for an internship, but also for a full-time role. How to set a goal for an internship and why that's important. Strategic networking, lots and lots of questions about strategic networking. So we're definitely going to cover that. How to optimize your interview process, especially important for those of you who are in that stage, in that pipeline, and in the interview process. Leveraging your internship experience, and then finally asking for a full-time position. These are, as I said, based on the questions that are submitted. I will tell you that it's about a fraction of what's actually covered in the book. So what you're going to find if you have an opportunity to get the book is a lot more granularity and detail on key topics. For instance, what do I do if scenarios? A lot of those things will happen to you because the business world is unpredictable. So there's lots to talk about with what do I do if scenarios. Things like, what do you do if an internship is not what you expected? How to successfully ask for and navigate feedback, how to walk that line between successful collaboration with your intern peer group, if you're in an intern group, and standing out to your manager, how to manage up. That's a really critical part of the job and career path. How to be awesome in meetings. Really important. Meetings are very different than classroom activities. And so there are protocols around meetings, and it's just helpful to know some of the actual best practices and leading practices before you get into meetings. There are also a whole lot of prompts, whole lot of worksheets, whole lot of what to do and what not to do lists, and lots of things like interview do's and don'ts, which we will talk about today. But mostly what it's designed to do is to have you create your own value proposition, your own narrative, your own type of discussions and stories and examples that are going to set you apart. So that's what we're going to discuss today. So let's just jump into the first one, choosing your path. Choosing your path is the key to creating a personal business narrative. What is a personal business narrative? A personal business narrative is basically your value proposition, what you bring to this internship experience, and why that body of work, body of learning, body of stories, body of past jobs you might have had is valuable to an employer. So before you even sit down to write a resume or schedule any interviews, it's really important to find out the kind of job you want to have. And it starts with identifying what you want and what you don't want. Because what you're looking for is connectivity between your academic and your social activities. That tells you a lot about you, your drivers, the fabric of who you are, how you communicate, and why you would be a valued employee. So I'll give you an example. When you're thinking about how you like to work, this is the first time you've ever had an internship. So how do you like to work at school? Do you like to work in a group? Do you like to work alone? Do you prefer to work alone? How do you prefer to communicate? Are you big on texting? Are you big on email? Would you rather talk to somebody or pick up the phone? What kind of environments do you thrive in? Highly structured, laid back, team-oriented? Do you love the remote thing? Do you want to be in person? When you're working at a part-time job or even at school, what are the kinds of things that are easy for you to do? So those would be put in your strengths categories. What kinds of things are difficult? So that all of these things, answering all of these things, this understanding of how you work best, reflecting on your past jobs, putting together your social and academic experience, really does start to define who you are and who you will be as an employee. And it really helps you to answer the question, which you will get in an interview, which is, why do you want an internship here? Why do you want to intern here? You will get that question. But if you can define how you like to work, what you love about the schoolwork that you're doing, your concentration, what you like less about your concentration or your major, how you get or generate ideas, and how you spend your free time, what you like about your friends, what are your hobbies. If you can put all of those things together into a cohesive statement, it tells your employer a lot about you. It tells them that you are self-reflective, you're self-aware, and you're also very aware of what you can bring to their workplace. So I'll give you an example because I just threw a whole bunch of stuff at you. So if your example is you like to study alone, hang out with one or two friends, play video games, basically where you are most comfortable are going to be in one-on-one or controlled environments. Places that have some closure to them, circular, and that's where you're going to be most comfortable. So looking for internships that provide training, provide a closed environment, a closed circuit, will have a very good result with that kind of a personality type. Another example, if you are the kind of a person who's like, yeah, get me up there in front of the class. I love playing team sports. I love big parties. I am a fast-paced environments person. You're going to be fine with unpredictability. Maybe you'd love a startup. Maybe you'd love a sales environment. So those are the kinds of ways that you can connect who you are, how you work, what you've done with the kind of environment for work that you will be comfortable in. Now, those are very binary examples. Chances are you'll be a mix of the two. And in the book, there are a bunch of worksheets that can sort of get you to gel all of your particular characteristics so you can try and find the best path for you. So now that we talked about you and what you're going to create and bring to this, let's talk about what employers value. This is it. This is like the secret sauce of hiring, these 6 things. It is the absolute, whether you're hiring for a CEO or you're hiring for an intern, this is what people hire for. Teachability, adaptability, collaboration, problem solving, humility, and leadership. Every interview you have, every question you have is going to touch on one of these 6 elements. Because for interns, what employers are hiring for is potential. I'm just going to let that sit for a second because that's really critical. You're just starting out in your career. Even at the graduate level, even if you've already had a couple of internships, you're not yet an expert in your field. So what employers are looking for is how well you're going to integrate into the existing culture, how well you're going to add value to the organization. So more than anything, during an internship, employers are going to be assessing how you think, how you address challenges, how you problem solve, and how you offer creative solutions. Those are the drivers that drive revenue. Those are the drivers that drive productivity. Those are the drivers that drive disruption in any sector. And those are critical to hire for. It's very difficult to teach those things. So the employer is more than willing to teach technical skills. You see, it's the first thing on what employers value, teachability. It's also why, going back to our first slide, over 70% of employers offer interns full-time jobs from the intern pool. Employers love to home grow employees. They get to home grow them for culture. They get to home grow them for skills development. They get to home grow them for integration. It's a really great value proposition for an employer. So when you're thinking about how you're going to talk about yourself, think about examples of things that would apply to this 6 areas. An example of in your academic life or in your personal life, where is an example where you had to be adaptable? Where is a great example of collaboration? Give an example or tell a story about how you solved a problem, or where you got to step in and exhibit leadership and leadership potential. You can even go so far as to do a SWOT. So you would outline your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats in each of these 6 areas with some stories and examples. Actually, in the book, chapter 2 has some assessments you can do to sort of decide and define where you sit in each of these 6 areas. And it helps you to level up your interview conversations to show that you understand the value you're bringing, and also shows your level of self-awareness, especially around the question of what are your weaknesses? You're also going to get that question. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So when you're talking about what some of those weaknesses might be, half of the conversation might be, these are the areas in which I can definitely improve, but also this is what I'm doing to address that. And this is what's part of me and my lived experience that I'm using and leveraging to improve in that particular area. So you'll have a great answer for that inevitable question of strengths and weaknesses. So one of the things that we got a lot of questions about, now that you've seen the secret sauce, so keep this in mind, because this is something that's going to be the through thread for the rest of our conversation here, is setting some goals for your internship. Why are goals important? I mean, a lot of people think you just go into an internship and you kind of do what they ask you to do. You follow along, you meet people, you learn stuff. All of those things are terrific. But when you think about the importance of a goal helps you define your direction. So when we're thinking about and looking at employers, for instance, what are employers really concerned about? They're concerned about 2 things: hiring the right people, number 1, and profitability, number 2. So single biggest cost center for any employer is employee turnover. So why is a goal connected with that? Having a goal helps connect your value and experience to an employer need. And having a goal in a very concrete way helps your employer to see how you will fit into the organization. It also helps them create success metrics for you and your internship experience, while also adding value to whatever project you're working on. So in the book, and I'll just go through it here, but there's a Mad Libs activity. Probably most of you have heard what Mad Libs are, kind of a fill in the blank sort of thing. But some of the Mad Libs that are talked about are things that will help you create a goal statement. Things like, in this internship, I would like to utilize these parts of my major, or I want to work in this sized organization in this kind of a business sector, or I want to learn how to do this particular skill or build a particular product or software. I want to get better at maybe something like public speaking. Another, which is really important, is I would like to meet. What kind of people do you want to meet when you're at your internship? That's a really critical goal. You want to make sure that you're going, and we'll talk about it in the networking section, but you want to make sure that you're expanding beyond just the people that you intersect with every single day. And finally, what do you want to use? What do you want to bring to the table? I want to use my analytics skill. I want to use my ability to sing. I want to use my ability to present. All of these things. So having your goal will keep you focused when you're searching, because you can think about types of internships and interview questions that help you uncover whether or not these are things that you can utilize and move toward in your internship. They give your network a lot of direction in helping point you the right way, whether it's to a resource or making an introduction or maybe even getting you an interview. Goals show that your employer, that you're motivated, you're thoughtful, you've thought a lot about this before you got into it. It really helps you drive your interview conversations. You can ask about particular activities or things that can happen in order for you to satisfy your goal. And they do and can be tied directly into deliverables. Most internships are learning experiences, but there usually is a work product that is at the end of an internship that's maybe presented, or maybe it is just part of a larger body of work. So how do you think about incorporating your goal into a deliverable or a work product? And it also gives you, having a goal in the event that your internship is not what you expected, it gives you a baseline for conversation. For instance, when I was hired here as an intern, we had talked a lot about helping to satisfy my goal of public speaking. And since I've been here, there haven't been too many opportunities. Are there other opportunities within this organization or this company where I can start to strengthen that public speaking muscle? It gives you a baseline to ask questions, to ask for feedback, to ask for additional work or activities. And really, you can frame it as easily as, I have a goal for my internship, and this is what it looks like. And a lot of it is helping you to take that goal and then have a conversation with your manager about how you operationalize that. How can I integrate the internship structure with my goal? Where are the opportunities for this? Who should I meet with to help me satisfy this goal? How can it help your business move forward? So all of these things are going to help you to create differentiation, number one, so you will stand out from the crowd, and also the opportunity to have deeper and more meaningful conversations with your manager. And when you leave your internship, you will have demonstrable improvement in one area or another, because you will have worked towards satisfying that goal. And that will help you in subsequent conversations with employers as you go from one job to the next. So thinking about our goal and how we can use that when we talk about networking. Networking is a strategy. Networking is also something that a lot of you had questions and observations about. But what's the purpose of a network? A network helps you vet your personal business narrative, your value proposition. It helps you develop goals. It helps make introductions. It helps you with guidance. It helps you with additional resources. And it also gives you an opportunity to talk with that person about their experience. What have they learned? How did they get to where they are? So all of those things are really important when you're thinking about starting out, because I will tell you 100%, no one's career path is a straight line. Everyone moves around. Not every job is great. That's another fact. But mostly, you're going to learn so much in each one of the experiences that you have across the breadth of your career that it's all iterative, it all builds, and it all helps to make you a better, more productive employee. So don't worry about having a straight career path with the first job and every job has to be perfect. You're going to get some dogs. You're going to get some dog managers. You're going to get some dog jobs. It's okay. You're going to learn a lot from them, and taking all of that information and putting it all together, it really helps you to make better decisions, first of all, on where you want to work in the future. And it helps you make better decisions of the types of environments you want to be in. But it all really starts with networking. Okay. So before we get into networking, I do just want to do one quick aside and remind everyone who's here today that there are 3 versions of you that an employer is going to see. It is your paper version, that's your resume. It's your online version, that's your LinkedIn, or if you have a personal website, or if you're creative, if you have a portfolio somewhere, and you're in person. All of these need to align. Having hired many people, there is nothing that dispels a sense of trust faster than having a person show up that does not track with their resume. you have absolutely no idea what you're getting. And it's really hard to build trust up from there. So if you can make sure that you've got great alignment among your resume, your online presence, and your in-person presence, that does a lot to build trust with an employer. And trust is one of those things that is hard to build, easy to lose, right? So starting off on the right foot is really critically important. So networking, now that you're aligned with all of your three versions of you, your network is your single biggest employment lever. Over 70% get either their first job or their best job by using their network. Why is that? Because networks are trusted people, trusted mentors, trusted professionals. They are trusted on your side. They're also trusted when that networking person talks to an employer about you. There is a heightened level of trust there. It also helps you to understand people's body of work and experience. You learn a tremendous amount from your network because they have been there before you. And networking isn't the kind of thing that you should only do when you're looking for a job. It starts now, starts today, but it won't end until the day you retire. And maybe not even after that, because you may want to do something else. So networking is something you just build and build and build over time. It's a source of creativity and ideas and connection with people. And that's what broadens the scope of your professional life. The other thing about your network is they're talking to you because they're invested in your success. So already the entry point is really high. And again, you have built that bond of trust with them immediately. So there are a couple of things here, because I'm sure there are some people on the call who are saying, okay, I don't have a network. I have absolutely no idea. But you do, because you know people. If you have a phone and you have contacts in your phone, you have a network. That's the fact. So where do you start? You can start with your family. You can start with family friends. You can start with career counselors. Suzanne is right here. Samantha's right here for those graduate schools. Professors, coaches, past employers, community members, people on LinkedIn, your peers, if you have hobbies, people who are also involved in those hobbies, if you play an extracurricular sport or are part of a club, all of those people are part of your network and they all want to help you. So that is the very first and most important element of a network. They really want to help you, but you have to give them direction. So the very first thing here is identifying your key players. We just talked about some places where you can go and think about that. Learn about the people in your network. You might know them in one capacity, but you may not know them in a professional capacity. So what's their experience? How did they get started? What do they like most about the field they're in? How's the field changed over time? Things are changing so quickly now. So what are the trends? What's happening? What's next in their field? Ask them if they've ever had an internship, what their experience was like, how they found it valuable. All of these kinds of answers give you valuable information for plugging in and explaining yourself and your goals and what you're interested in. But the most important thing here is to be prepared with stories and be prepared with facts. People really remember stories, and the point of a network is to have them pass you on to someone else. And so make sure that you have one or two very concise statements about why you are valuable as an employee that they can pass on to someone in their network so they can offer an interview or a conversation. So make sure when you're talking with your network that they walk out of that room, or virtual or real, knowing exactly what you want them to pass on to someone else about you. That helps if you have an example. It helps if you have a story, because people tend to remember stories more than they remember facts. The other thing for your network is please be prepared with an ask. An ask is critical. They want to help you, but they don't know how. And so be prepared with, I would like an introduction at this company or in this sector. Who do you know in this sector that could help me? Who do you know that does this kind of work? I'd like to be connected with people that do this kind of work because that's what I'm interested in. I'd like to be connected because my goal is to be a better public speaker. Who's the best public speaker you know? Can you connect me with that person? I'd like to meet them. So be prepared with an ask. But in that conversation, you may go in with an ask, but it may change over time based upon what you hear. So just be flexible. Go with the flow of the conversation. But you want to make sure that you're going to come out of the conversation with an actual action step, and action for them to take and action for you to take. Please, oh, please, oh, please, do not go into a conversation and say, can I pick your brain? There is nothing in this world that turns off a business person faster than those words, because it shows to them that you're not prepared, that you haven't done your research, you haven't researched where they work and what they do. And if you don't have a specific ask, then you can go in with something a little more concrete. I have some questions about you and your path and your work in relation to my skills and interests. That will get you in the door. That will get you way farther than can I pick your brain. It's just a conversation. It will shut down a conversation. So that is my advice to you. And the other thing about networking, follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. People are really busy. They do intend, they have your best interest in mind. They do intend to do the work, but a lot of stuff gets in the way. You're not bugging them. Tell them, I'd like to follow up with you next week to see if you've had the opportunity to make that introduction or to send that resource. Tell them what your next step will be and a timeline so they know when you're going to be back in contact. Also, don't forget to connect with them on LinkedIn. Definitely send them a thank you note for their time and for their effort on your behalf. So those are just the main parts of networking. There's a lot more granularity to discuss, but this are the kind of things that are going to get you to start to build that network and think about who are the most high potential individuals that you need to get in front of and have a conversation with. So let's move on to the interview. Interviewing. Okay, here are just some high-level elevated interviewing tips. Here's a good acronym to remember. Hello, handshake, eye contact, listen, language, observe. These are really, really critical for an interview. Even if you're doing an interview over Zoom, you can do a virtual handshake. How do you do that? It's a pleasure to meet you. How's it going today? How are your interviews going? Do you have a lot of people that you're interviewing for this internship position? That is a virtual handshake. Really important to use it to get the conversation started, to create some rapport, create a little bit of a personal connection. It does the same thing as an actual physical handshake. The reason why these 5 things are important, and we'll get into them a little bit more in detail, is that first impressions really matter, especially for an internship. Your internship is only going to last between 6 and 8 weeks. That's the blink of an eye in terms of business. So you need to make a favorable impression right away. And what is a first impression? A first impression is made up primarily, about 55%, of non-verbal cues. That's how you look, how confident you are, how you present yourself. All of those things are the majority of a first impression. 38% of a first impression is your tone of voice, your voice modulation. Are you speaking really quickly? Do you seem nervous? Do you seem confident? Do you seem professional? All of those things are created in voice. And then finally, the content, believe it or not, the content of what you're saying really only comprises 7% of a first impression. Why? Because a first impression takes about 30 seconds to form. So not a lot of content is going to be communicated within that period of time. But a first impression is critical. It's critical for getting passed on. It's critical for conveying the way that you want to be treated, the way that you want to come into this conversation. And so what are some of the things that can help you with a good first impression? Be on time or early, doesn't matter if it's Zoom or in person. Be prepared. So do your research on the organization, on the person, if you can. If it's an HR person, if it's a recruiter, do some research on that firm, find out about them. Be confident. A lot of confidence is in your eye contact. A lot of confidence is in how you're presenting your nonverbal, your body language. Be prepared with examples and stories, just like you do with your network, and of course, with questions. So, especially on Zoom, eye contact, body language, voice modulation are really important. Setting up your space properly, really important. Definitely being on camera. People want to see what you're doing, where, how you look, how you're presenting yourself. Part of that is not being extra nervous. Yeah, you're going to be a little nervous. It's an interview, right? You're having this interview. You want the internship, so you're excited, you're nervous, but a lot of fidgeting, a lot of nervous laughter, that doesn't help to build a sense of confidence with the person who's interviewing you. So try to keep that to a minimum. You can do that through breathing exercises before you get on the call. Even make sure you breathe during the call. Also in language is really important. Here are the 3 words, like, and you know. If your speech is full of filler words, like, and you know, it's really, really hard for your interviewer to extract the wonderful value proposition that you've developed, the goals that you have set for yourself, because there's too many fillers in your conversation. You can get over, if you have a tendency to say like a lot, or a lot, or so a lot, or you know a lot, they don't know. That's why they're interviewing you. Please practice and listen to yourself. It is the worst thing ever to record yourself and then listen to yourself. I won't listen to this recording because I can't stand listening to myself. But the fact is, it's really important to take those out of your language. For one thing, it will set yourself apart and it will differentiate you from the other candidates. And it will help your interviewer to be able to discern your value much more quickly. It gives you then the opportunity to be very clear about your personal business narrative and to talk about your strengths, your areas for improvement, what you're doing to work on those areas of improvement, your goals, to tell your stories. But of course, interviews are a two-way street. So you should also be prepared with some great questions to ask. In the book, there's a whole list. There are 12. I'll give you 3 here. But what's the typical day for an intern? Do interns have mentors, either formal or informal mentors? Mentoring is really key in an internship. And how do interns collaborate with other departments? Remember, you're there to build your network as well. So you want to be able to be in play with as many people as possible outside the department in which you're working, in the larger organization or the company. So those are some of the questions that you can ask to just find out how that internship is structured. But if you get a question and you don't know the answer, that's okay. Say you don't know, but also say that you're going to find out and you're going to get back to the interviewer by the next day with an answer, and then do that. There's no point in fumbling around if you don't know it. If you don't know it, you don't know it, but find it out, come back to them. It gives you the added opportunity to also have another conversation with that interviewer. So you can think of that as a good thing. Navigating multiple offers, there's a 4-page layout of how to navigate multiple offers for internships. And, I'll just give you some high-level things here. If you have multiple offers, obviously thank the person that's interviewing you for the offer. Talk about the timeline, be transparent. Say you've got a couple of things that are working, you have another offer for another internship. What is their timeline for decision making? Can you get back to them within a day or two with an answer? Ask any additional questions that you might have. But if this internship is your first choice, you should just say that this is really my first choice. I have another offer, but this is my first choice. Make sure you have all the details you need, because you need all the information that you can get before you make an offer. If you happen to be in a place where they are not able to offer compensation for this internship, then you can think about some creative strategies. And there's a bunch in the book. I'm not going to get too in the weeds with that. A bunch in the book for how you can be creative and still take that internship, but be in a position to make some money so you can afford to live in New York, because New York's expensive, as we've probably all figured out. So all of these things helps you to keep the door open. And don't forget, you've got follow-up, do it within 24 hours with a thank you note, and you're flattered for the offer. But if you can't take it, then it's a lot to consider. And can you possibly think about it overnight or over the weekend so you can make a really unbiased decision, and just let them know what your timeline is. By the way, all these people that are interviewing you should also become part of your personal and professional network. You'll probably need another job at some point, and if this person comes from a recruiting firm, it's a good person to have in your network. So definitely connect with them. So let's move on to after the interview and to leverage some of this experience. We talked about making a strong first impression. These are just some quick things. Remembering names. You're going to meet a lot of people, especially in the first couple of days. If you forget their names, that's okay. Call it out as quickly as you find out. Do little mind tricks. Bob, he has blue eyes. Okay, Bob, blue eyes. All right, I got that. Okay, now I'm going to remember Bob. So try to trick yourself with little tools so you can remember names. But if you don't, the easiest way is, I've met so many people over the past week or 2 weeks. I just don't remember your name. I apologize. And just get that out of the way quickly. Elevator etiquette. Yes, for people who are working in person, really kind of important. The elevator is, everybody takes the elevator, from the CEO of the company to the person who is a temp. Everybody's in the elevator. You don't know who you're in the elevator with. So try to keep your chit chat about what you did on the weekend or the night before. Keep that to a minimum. If you see somebody that you know from your organization, just say hi, see what's going on, wish them a good morning, wish them a good evening. Right? So just try to use that time to become memorable. And some of the other things in leveraging your internship is really, as you're connecting on LinkedIn, as you're keeping people informed as you grow with your network and your schoolwork, and just keep them updated as things happen in your life. It could be during your internship, it could be after your internship, and you've said goodbye or you're staying at that company, but just keeping people informed on where you are makes you top of mind. Also meeting often with your supervisor about roles and responsibilities is very important. And to the extent that you can, being really solutions oriented. A lot of things are another reason why employers hire interns is because every generation has really good ideas, and businesses and organizations have challenges, and they need new ways to solve for those challenges. You're part of that solution. So be willing to be part of that conversation and to be solutions oriented, and also not forgetting about the big six: teachability, adaptability, collaboration, problem solving, humility, and leadership. Where can you exhibit those 6 things every day when you show up in your internship? Thinking about that, and that will really help you to stand out. A couple of more tactical things. Mentors are really important. If your internship does not have a mentorship, a formal program, find an informal mentor. Use them the same way as you would with your network. Ask them about their experience, have them help you navigate situations that you may not have encountered before, and have them help you be able to answer questions and give you a little bit more of context around why some decisions are being made. Mentors are really critical. So make sure when you first get to your internship, ask about a mentor. There's probably is something, formal or informal, that can be set up for you. Also, because you're there to also network, ask for introductions to other departments. This is another place where your goal really dovetails well, because if another department has a lot of work or people that do whatever your goal is very well, it's a great and seamless way to ask for introductions. If you are, and this happens a lot in internships, working for multiple people in your internship, and there are lots and lots of competing deadlines, please, it's not only about managing your time, but it's also about raising your hand and saying you need help. A lot of people may not be aware that you've got competing deadlines. And the point is not to create a stressful environment, but you've got to ask for help immediately and a reallocation of your workload, because that happens a lot in internships. Make a point of asking for feedback from your supervisor at least twice during your internship. How am I doing? Where are areas that I can grow? What am I doing well? Who else do I need to meet? Do these couple of check-ins so you make sure that when you leave your internship, you've met your goals and really maximized the experience. You can also ask your supervisor, what's the best way to get a job here? I love it. I want to work here. How do I do it? You're there. Get the inside baseball. Definitely don't be afraid to ask that question. And when you are in a room, in a big meeting, identify who the big decision makers are in that room. Make a point of meeting them. I really was impressed by how you made that decision in the meeting. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Marti Fischer. I'm an intern here for the summer. Again, expanding your network, getting yourself out there. And always, 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 when you're given a task, ask about why. Why does this task, how does this task connect with a bigger business impact or business success? All of those things are going to help you to really maximize and leverage the experience that you have in your internship. So here we are. There were a bunch of questions on this, asking for a full-time position. If you've asked for feedback along the way, then you're going to have a very clear picture of how you have progressed over time. And so that will help you to ask eventually for a full-time position, because you can learn where you can improve. You can actually institute some activities for that. You can volunteer your feedback to supervisors. This is what I thought was great about this internship experience. This is what I learned. This is what I valued. Telling those stories is really important. Employers always want to know how their intern programs are doing. They always want to improve them. And if there are areas in which they can be improved, you can absolutely talk about that. But again, thinking about the big six, be solutions oriented. Don't just talk about what's wrong. Say, well, if I were going to come back and intern again, this is what I'd like to see. I'd like to see you improve this particular area or create more connectivity between departments. So you can offer that. That is valid, actual, relevant, important feedback. Connecting when you're asking for a full-time job, connecting what you learned with your original goals and how you are tracking toward that, why you believe you've been really valuable and how you can continue to be valuable in the future. You can certainly ask who else is being considered for a full-time role and what else you can do to be considered for a full-time role. And then, of course, following up, thanking, asking for written recommendations. If you do happen to have an exit interview, be very clear about what you liked, about what you learned, about what you can be improved. If there were challenges, what the challenges were. If there were surprises, what the surprises were. Any important takeaways. But again, if you have critical feedback, constructive feedback, be prepared to also come with a solution. And finally, if you love the company or the organization and you want a job there, sometimes you just have to ask for it. I really want to work here. I love it. How do I do it? Help me. And people will be willing to help if you've shown up and been a valuable part of the team for the time that you're there. So finally, there's really success that you can own at every single step. In getting your internship, in connecting your story with employer need, networking really strategically, offering your stories and experience that demonstrate that you are self-aware, but also know a lot about the organization that you're interning for, thinking about your insights into challenges during your internship. So delivering on your promises, trying to work towards satisfying your goal, leading with curiosity, finding out about lots of other people and organizations and departments. You may not have a great experience in your department, but there may be another department that could be terrific for you. So great, learn about that, meet the people there. Finally, landing an offer, playing into talking about all of those big 6 characteristics that we talked about and how you can demonstrate or have examples that prove why you have made improvement and why you're successful in those areas. And then finally, if you want to get the job, you may just have to ask for it and make your point about why you would be a valuable addition to that particular organization or particular company. So with that, it was a ton of information. I know it was a ton of information, but if you can parse it out, if there is a takeaway from today that you believe you will use or could use immediately, I would be very interested if you would put it in the chat. Also, we have a few minutes, so if you have any questions, specific questions, I would be happy to field those as well.
Thanks so much, Marty.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
this
you've
is
gotten
really
any,
great.
but
Yeah, if you want to raise your hand, like use the hand raising button and you can unmute yourself or put any questions in the chat. Either way works. Kaylee, I see your hand.
Kaylee, yeah.
Hello, thank you so much for this presentation. It was amazing and so useful. My question is, are there common ways that you see the people that you work with kind of mess up in interviews? I know I've definitely had that experience where I said something like maybe a number for what I'm asking for in terms of payment, and that didn't get me the job. So are there just common things that you find that in interviews people tend to not know in terms of like what not to say, what to say, things like that?
Yeah, actually, there's a whole bunch of that's one big do and don't section in the book. So it's a great question. But let's just go back to interviewing for a second, because that's what you're particularly talking about. Listening. You're going to get a lot from your interviewer when you listen to what they're saying. So a lot of times we go in and we're prepared. It's like, I've got to ask for this amount of money. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. Sometimes the conversation isn't going to go to that place. And what's important to know, and this is sort of rule number 101 for negotiating, and when it comes to, because you asked the question about salary, is that that might not have been the right place for a salary conversation. That may have had to evolve over time. And if you have a specific number in mind, you may want to pose it as a question rather as a statement. What is the range for intern compensation? Always ask about a range, because if they come in at one number and you have a higher number, you can start to try to bridge the gap between those two numbers. Is there any flexibility? Is there an opportunity? I see this is a 4-day-a-week internship. Is there any flexibility to work 5 days and maybe be able to come and meet that number? Are there creative approaches that we can take? The thing with questions is that it gives you a lot of flexibility in the conversation. Definitive statements are out there. And so either you're going to continue the conversation from the statement point, or you may have to walk it back if it's a salary level that you weren't expecting. So listening in that interview is probably going to be the one single thing that is going to help you to avoid those kinds of questions where you feel like you've got nowhere to go. Was that helpful?
Yes, thank you so much.
Anyone else for questions? Oh, I see we're at 2, but if there's another question, we'll do it.
Okay, yeah, if you can stay, if there is a question. Does anyone want to raise their hand or have a question for the chat? Okay, not seeing anything. So we can wrap it up here. And I'm gonna just put your website in the chat. And I know you said you have a blog. Is that a weekly blog or?
I do. For 10 years, I've written a monthly blog. So there's a lot of content. I've got 10 years worth of leadership, communication, and career blogs on my website. So I put them out every month, first Tuesday of the month. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Yes, we talked about that a lot. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and then you'll get it, or you can sign up on the website for the blog. But there's a ton in there for interviewing. There's a ton for navigating certain circumstances, tons on communications, tons on leadership, tons on getting a job, changing a job, working in a job that is great, working and getting better, working in a job that may not be so great. So there's a lot there. And I think if that's of interest to you, you definitely should. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. There's a lot of resources out there for that.
Please join me in thanking Marti Fischer today, everybody. And we thank you for being here with us and taking the time out of your day, and wishing you successful internships this summer or in the future. And feel free to reach out with any questions. So thanks, everybody. And thanks so much, Marti. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all. Great to meet you. Good luck.
Have a
Enjoy
great
the
day.
summer. Yes, you too.